What can I say about The Green Knight? This film was written, edited, produced, and directed by David Lowery and based on a 14th century story called Sir Gawain and the Green Knight from the lore of King Arthur. Now, I don't know anything about the source material. I've never read the poem, I've never read the original story, so I'm going into this film just wanting to see a good movie. And I'm a little mixed about this one. The movie's getting a ton of praise from critics, and there are things to praise, but there's also things that didn't really connect with me. First of all, the cinematography in this movie is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's some of the most breathtaking imagery that I've ever seen in a movie. There are scenes in this film where there's like giants and there's forests and there's these large castles and everything looks very, very real. It all looks very well crafted. The costumes are fantastic. Everybody looks authentic. And everything looks almost horrifying in a way. Not that this is a horror film, but there's a lot of very creepy and haunting vibes to this movie. You know, when you're seeing the characters walking through these chambers and these castles and these rooms, it all looks so incredibly beautiful. And you just, when you first see this film, you'll be in awe of just how the movie looks and how the movie sounds. Aesthetically speaking, this movie is the cream of the crop. The music was composed by Daniel Hart, and he does an incredible job with the soundtrack of this movie. It's got this somber feel to it. You hear it. It's powerful. It's got that medieval fantasy type of feel, which fits with the medieval fantasy type of story that this is. It has this really awesome epicness to it to where it doesn't really have like a theme. Like it doesn't have like a theme like other movies do, but each individual smaller theme is tonally perfect. Like there's scenes in this movie where there's no dialogue and the music tells the story. The music and the vibe of the music kind of tells the audience what is going on in the head of the characters, where whether they should be frightened or they should be concerned, they should be finding their courage. You know, the music and the score here is really, really fantastic. Also, I've got to put over the acting. Dev Patel plays Sir Gawain, who is the nephew of King Arthur, but the movie doesn't tell you that. I had to look that up to read up on the original story. And he is confronted, well, he isn't really confronted. This mysterious supernatural being called the Green Knight appears at King Arthur's castle and challenges any one of his knights to face him in a duel. And if he can land a blow, then in 1 year's time, whomever can strike that blow has to go find the Green Knight to get their comeuppance, if that makes sense. And Dev Patel is really good in this movie. I mean, he's a good actor, but we've seen good actors get directed to shit. Like, for example, in Old, there were tons of good actors in that movie that did not really do so well. But in this movie, there are what makes him great is not just his delivery of the dialogue, but also the facial expressions he has, his look of bewilderment or surprise or concern. And as this film progresses, you see the character of Gawain going through the forest trying to find the Green Knight because a year does go by. Try to go to his lair, so to speak, and he has to deal with all kinds of strange phenomenon like thieves and scavengers and some really bizarre supernatural characters, giants, all kinds of different things. And that all sounds like the makings of a classic medieval epic story. Like it's right up there with like the Odyssey and the Lord of the Rings, right? Not to me. I gotta be honest. This movie, okay, aesthetically speaking, the movie is great. And the message of the movie about finding your courage and discovering who you are as a man, all of that is fine and good. But my God, does this movie drag. Like, I never want to see this movie ever again. I'm not saying it's a bad film. It just did not connect with me. I know that critics are loving it. I know it's getting a lot of praise, but critics also love The Last Jedi, and it didn't connect with me either, along with other movies. And this is the movie made by A24, which also made the Ari Aster films like, Midsummer and Hereditary, and they also produced Uncut Gems. I've talked about all those movies here on this channel in the past, and so they make good movies. They make quality films, and I'm not saying this is a bad movie because I know some folks are gonna love it, but it just did not connect with me. The movie drags. It takes its time. It's a very slow burn. It tries to be as accurate as possible to the original story, but I haven't read the original story, so I don't know that. I only know that based on comments that I had heard from people who had read the original story. I never studied that story when I was in high school and never read it afterward. But I think the movie takes way too long. It's 2.5 hours long and it feels like 2.5 hours long. There are times in the movie where it takes its time to build things up, but when you get the payoff, you're like, damn, like, that's the payoff. Like, that's what I got. And it's not like the payoff is necessarily a bad thing, but it just wasn't worth all the time wasted. They could have shredded some time off of this movie. They could have cut some stuff down, made it about 2 hours or an hour and 45 minutes, and it would have told the same story just fine. It would have told the same story just fine. Near the end of the movie, things do tend to pick up, including the final confrontation with the Green Knight, which ends up having a couple twists in it that were, I don't know if you can really call them twists, like the M. Night Shyamalan definition of a twist, but it was kind of like a bait and switch, so to speak, that we've seen in movies before, and I like the way it was done here, but to me, it didn't really make up for, like, the rest of the movie taking so long to get here. Like, I get when you have an epic journey that takes a long time, a huge quest, I get all that, but with this movie, the quest is not as big as the runtime. You know what I mean? Like, they could have added more stuff, but that extra stuff is not in the original poem, so they had to kind of let things play out slowly. And there's some really awkward characters in the movie and really weird moments. Not to say that I dislike them, but they're just very strange. There's a lot of, I guess the way to compare it is like Pan's Labyrinth. There's some Pan's Labyrinth vibes in this movie. You know what I mean? I don't know if y'all like that film or not, but there's a lot of that in this movie. But the visuals aren't quite like the ones in that movie. It's more so like the tone. The one thing that David Lowery did really execute well is when you watch the movie and you see Sir Gawain kind of going on his quest, you kind of feel how alone he is. You feel how alone he is. He captures that vibe of going on a quest and being alone. Like if you're playing like a video game like Legend of Zelda or, I don't know, Skyrim, where you're going on a quest by yourself. Like it's got that kind of vibe to it. But to me, the movie did feel like a waste of time. I'll be honest. It did feel like a waste of time. They could have very easily shaved a lot of stuff out of this movie and made it better. I am okay with long movies if there's stuff that actually happens. Things take too long. You're not going to get a huge epic battle like you think you're going to get. Maybe I was expecting something I shouldn't have been expecting, but the story is much more of a character-driven story than one of action. And that's okay. I can deal with that. I can deal with that because Uncut Gems didn't have that much action. It was more of a character-driven story, right? But with this, I didn't think the payoff was worth the time invested. So I'm going to tell people, you know what? Unless you're really into the fantasy genre and King Arthur, you're probably best not seeing this movie. You can try seeing it maybe once when it comes out on streaming, but there's a very good chance you'll get distracted because of how long it takes to get to the damn point. That's my review. Talk to you soon.